we've just had a class around democracy and development, and I think it's the first class at IDS, the first long, full-term class on this theme that we've had here. And you and Andres have put it together. Can you just tell us a little bit about why you thought it was so important that development studies do this?
Well,
and what are you trying to do with the class?
Yes. Well, I am very enthusiastic about this course, and I think there are many reasons for this. Now, the first one is this curious justification. I think that in a prestigious research institute like IDS, with a bit more than 40 years old, isn't it? It's really surprising that we never had a course specifically dealing with democracy, democratic issues, etc. Although it's obvious, all these topics related to democracy, they are discussed in different courses, including many of your own courses. But we never had one specific course on democracy. So I think that the first aspect I would like to emphasize is the fact that, well, when democracy becomes under commas, and the only game in town, isn't it? So I think it's obvious that we should have a course trying to relate ideas on democracy and process of change in different societies, etc. So this is, I think, the first reason that justifies a course like this. I think that there is a second one, which is important. When we analyze the history of the democratic idea, well, it became, perhaps in the last 20 years, 40 years, as you know, better than me, a very sophisticated field, complex field. New theories emerged, new ideas, new frameworks, new models, etc. So it became really a very rich field in theoretical terms, so that we have nowadays many disputing ideas on democracy, etc. So this is something that we should, I think, bring to the Institute, especially because some of these ideas, they promise to be, let's say, transformative. And so when democracy became so hegemonic, and some of the models, they promise to be transformative, so they promise to give people some political mechanisms to transform their societies. Well, this is something that I think that should be discussed in our course. And I think there is a third reason that a course like this perhaps finds in IDS its ideal place, which is the fact that this institute is able to attract students from all countries in the world. So that when you, as you did this morning, when we discuss deepening democracy, for example, we can hear, well, my experience in Uganda, my experience in India, my experience in Spain, in the United States, in the UK, etc. So, and you can confront all these historical trajectories when you are raising some theoretical issues. Perhaps these are, among others, I think that these are some of the justifications for a course like this in our institute.
You've put together quite a reading list for this. The syllabus is really impressive, I think, a lot of materials. But what's the biggest challenge are you finding in teaching this kind of course? And, or what advice, alternatively, what advice would you share with our colleagues who are trying to put together these kinds of courses in other parts of other DRC centers?
You are right, there is an enormous body of books, articles, etc., discussing democracy in these days. And it is impossible, of course, to read, to have an idea of all the niceties of this discussion. What we did was to suggest, and this is not only our idea, my idea, or Andres' idea, who is the other convener of this course, to suggest to our students the books that we like. We made a consultation with other colleagues, etc., trying to select the best article or perhaps the best book when you have a specific topic to discuss. And the idea is, well, to ask our students to read at least these so-called essential readings. But we hope at least that, if not all, at least most of the students, they will become interested in this field, so that they would be able to deepen their understanding on these specific topics, and then they will have access to the list. No? But we are limited by time. No? This is a very short course in terms of time, so we can't, of course, require too much in terms of reading. No? And perhaps there is also something which is, well, it is typical of IDS. I don't know if it's also typical from other research institutes. Perhaps this is also common in different institutions, which is the fact that here in our institution, we are all the time demanded, not only by students, but let's say the whole rationale of this institute and as a result of its history, to relate, let's say, analytical, conceptual, theoretical discussions to practical things. No? In other words, if you discuss a model of democracy, well, how does it translate into practice? No? And so it requires more time. No? And I think this is another challenge we have in this course, because we don't have enough space to discuss only theoretical topics. If we add this demand, which is quite important, to translate theoretical debates, etc., into concrete cases and concrete context situations, etc., well, it would require even more time, isn't it? So this is another big challenge we have in a course like this. Our solution was the most obvious one and quite simple. We tried to organize the course in simply two parts. Broadly speaking, the first part we are trying to offer much more theoretical understandings about democracy, and the second part we are trying to discuss more concrete cases and relate them to our conceptual previous debates.